You legal turning out of a business too? Huh, I know, I have friends who've gotten tickets for that before on Highway 101 when they live on it, but.
All right, everyone, I think it's 1:30 and I believe we have a quorum present. So I would like to call this meeting of the Jefferson Transit Authority Board to order at 1:30 on April 15th, tax day. Thank you all for attending. We're going to start with a quick roll call of who all is present. So maybe we could start in the room with you guys that are present in the room.
Yeah, you want to start? Greg Brotherton, Vice Chair.
Go around or just the next person?
Let's just go around. That's great.
Okay. Heather Dudley Nolette, Jefferson County, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Miranda Nash, Finance Manager, Jefferson Transit.
Sarah Peck, Mobility Operations Manager, Jefferson Transit.
Jamie Brooke, Grants and Procurement Coordinator, Jefferson Transit. Desiree William, Fleet Facility Manager, Jefferson Transit.
Jamie Hall, Fixed Route Operations Manager, Jefferson Transit.
Nicole Gauthier, General Manager, Jefferson Transit.
Vivian?
There's a couple more.
Vivian started, I think.
I started. Still Vivian.
Go ahead.
Okay, Amanda Watkins, I'm the new Executive Assistant and Clerk of the Board. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Amanda.
We have an iPhone online that has her hand up. It might be Heidi, so I'm going to allow them to talk and see.
I don't think it is. She had a conflict.
Oh.
No, it's Rick.
Oh, hi, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
I need to get onto the thing.
Nice to see your hand. Rick.
Yeah.
I'm promoting
Just
you over to
waiting.
panelist here.
All right, and then also online, David, do you want to go first?
David Faber, City of Port Townsend, board member.
Nice.
Ben?
Yeah, Ben Thomas, Port Townsend City Council.
And John Nowak, board chair. Thanks, everyone. So public comment, does any member of the public wish to give public comment? If you are online, please raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute.
Nobody online is raising their hand.
All right. New agenda items. Does anybody have any items that they want to add to our already very full agenda today?
The agenda.
All right. Finance report, Miranda, I think you're up next.
That's me. Okay, so for sales tax revenue in January, which is remitted in March. Sorry, I got my timeline. Okay, so for the month earned is January when I'm speaking about this, we received them 2 months later. So sales tax in January compared to the prior year was up 19%. In February was up 18%. I am getting my months messed up. It's back to December in November and January, December and February, but we'll get there. So we've seen a positive trend in the last quarter of 2024. So the accumulated for 2025 is 18% up. We do not have operating revenue. We are zero fare on all services. For March of 2025, the operating expenses, we're 6.6% under budget. For labor, we're at 5.4% under budget. Benefits, we're at 5.8% under budget. Services and user fees is 12.6% under budget. Materials and supplies consumed is 11.8% under budget. Utilities is 5.7% under budget. Casualty and liability cost is at 1.3% under budget. Taxes is 18.5% under budget. Miscellaneous expenses is 13.1% under budget. And leases and rental fees is 7.5% under budget. Typically, this is there's some timing issues where we get new contracts in place. We're renewing certain licenses. So sometimes when it's over or under, especially more in the beginning of the year, it's more of an indication that we haven't hit that line item yet, hasn't renewed. So it is a timing issue. For our capital activity, we had the third maintenance bay construction. We've actually expended quite a bit on that so far. Our 111 facilities building, which we'll be discussing today, our comprehensive system analysis plan, also be discussing, and our Haynes Place Transit Center project. I just want to note that due to the timing of the board meeting in April, it hit our AP run, which was today, which had a lot of our March expenses. So while this report captures what we have had in the system as of the report date, it does not capture March's final expenses. For a miscellaneous expense overview, the breakdown of 13.1% under budget. The breakdown includes dues and subscriptions. This is slightly over budget, and this is due to a timing issue where all those renewals are front loaded at the beginning of the year. Our travel and meetings is under budget. Safety program, that is under budget because we haven't done that yet, but we have some all staff, oh, I'm sorry, we have done that yet. We have done that. I was thinking of wooden boat, but our cost for all staff day food and safety awards go into the safety program as well. Training includes our committee training registrations and related costs. CDL physicals, these are renewals for drivers and new hires that we are onboarding. And other miscellaneous includes minor activity like parking fees and things like that. And that is the financial report as of March.
I have a technical question. When you say percent budget, are you looking at monthly budgets or at the whole year?
The whole year. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what we're using our budget tracking figures. So March would be a quarter. So it's 25% of the year.
Okay.
So when I say it's 6.6 under budget, looking at where we should be at 25%, but we're 6.6% underneath that.
Or really at 19, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. So the financial sheets in there show where we're actually at. I'm just giving a summary of comparing where we should be.
Or where we projected to be at this. Yeah.
Any other questions for Miranda? All right, thanks, Miranda. Appreciate your diligence to detail there. Consent agenda, is there anything on the consent agenda that that any of the board members would like to take out? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right, motion carries.
Now.
So we are on to new business, and the first item on the agenda is Bassetti Architects and Barker Creek, the facilities maintenance building, and I believe that's a presentation, right, Miranda?
Yes. Sorry, Nicole's directing this conversation.
Yes, we will pull them over to have a follow-up discussion to what we talked about at the February board meeting. So excited that Shannon Thompson, Sydney Thompson, and Christian Kaczynski is here. Shannon and Sydney are from Barker Creek Consulting, and Christian is from Bassetti Architects. So I will turn it over to Shannon and Christian.
Awesome.
Right.
So I'll give you a start and then I'll let Christian do his thing. So since the last time we've met, we have met with Bassetti on several occasions to kind of go through the project programming, not just for this this maintenance building, but as a whole, so we can understand what their total impacts are. And what you're going to see today is the results of that programming. It takes into account all future needs and the placement of this maintenance shop that we are looking at a final version of this. Now, from this point, what we will need to do is take this version and actually start focusing in on the maintenance shop and what our budgets will look like as we progress through that design of the maintenance shop. So what you're going to see is really kind of a box diagram of, hey, here's the maintenance shop, here's the testing rundown area, here's the future bus wash, and how it relates to the rest of your facilities. So with that, what I'll do is I'm going to turn the time over to Christian, and he'll walk us through where we ended up.
Sure. Thanks, Shannon. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's get my screen share going here. Here, you guys can see this okay?
Yes.
All right, so we went through several different iterations of kind of looking at the site and looking at placement for the future improvements. And this is kind of where we have landed currently. So the darker shaded area here would be area of new pavement added on to the existing facility. You can see the dotted lines here represent the property line boundaries. So this piece down here is the 111 property that's currently vacant. And then the other things to point out is there's the existing trail that goes around the outside of the facility is indicated here in the light gray. And this large pond that's up here in this corner is the existing detention and infiltration pond that's up there now. So what we've done in planning this out is to really focus on where would be the ideal location for this future facilities building. And that's shown in with the white rectangle here. And one of the reasons for this location kind of making a lot of sense was that during the construction and planning of the original facility, there were some utility connections that were stubbed out at this corner of the yard in anticipation of a future bus wash building. And so there's actually underground routing for power and data and water already to this location. And so it made a lot of sense to tap into that those stub outs that were intended for this type of future improvement. So we've located the building here near that location so that the bringing the utilities to the existing building doesn't require us to add new service connections out at the road or to be trenching long distances across the site in order to bring underground services over to this building. And so we placed the building here. And then indicated that there could be, this would be the ideal spot for a future drive-through bus wash that would be located adjacent to this building. And so sharing those utility connections off of there and providing a place where from a circulation standpoint, the buses can access the fueling island here and circulate around the yard and pull through a drive-through bus wash location there. And then also then we identified the location for a future, what we call the detailing station. So it would be a covered location for, vacuuming and cleaning out of the buses. And so that could be either accessed, after a bus has gone through the wash, they can pull straight into the station, or they can pull into it, and skip the wash and pull into it there, and then have room for turning around and circulating back through the yard. And then the other thing that we've done is identify a large open space here that would be available for the training and testing maneuvers for the drivers as part of that, so that there's plenty of room there to set up for those maneuvers. And then, oops, excuse me, and then we've located parking spaces both to replace the parking spaces that are currently at the edge of the yard along here that get removed with this expansion. And then also a few additional spaces as well to allow for future expansion of the fleet. So there's both bus parking stalls as well as some additional stalls for passenger sized vehicles that might be part of the fleet in this area as well. So the facilities building would be here. We've also laid this out such that there could be pull through access for that building. I think, you know, as we refine the design for this, we may not utilize that fully, but we wanted to at least make sure that we were allowing for that possible ability to be able to like pull something through, but particularly the bus shelters that get brought here on trailers, to be able to, you know, pull through this building with the trailer for loading and unloading inside, and then be able to pull through without having to back out. Also, what you'll see on here is we've taken the existing tire storage container that's kind of right now at this corner of the yard and located a spot for that, as well as provided a place for a covered outdoor storage of some of the equipment that the facilities department is using, so that there's a place for those things to land, things such as lifts and some of those small trailers and things like that can be stored out of the weather. We've also shown rerouting the existing trail that's on site and connecting it down along the east side here, so that connects down to the future location for the Discovery Trail alongside the street down here at this edge of the property. And then we've indicated the location for the what we would anticipate for stormwater detention and infiltration related to the new pavement provided in here. Over there. And I think that's it. Oh, then the other piece of this too was trying to plan for a second gate for entry and exit from the yard itself. So the existing fence line would be modified so that all of this new area is enclosed inside of the secure perimeter. And then a new security gate with driveway would be added here. So this would provide a second way for buses and other vehicles to go in and out of the yard. I think the idea is to continue to use this entrance here as the main way in and out of the yard, but that this would provide an alternate route so that this point doesn't become a bottleneck in the future. Any questions?
The bus wash is outdoor. I had the impression it was somehow in the facility building, but it's not, I think.
It would be a drive-through building. So it would be the wash equipment would be inside. It would be roofed and have garage doors on both sides of it, so it could be closed off. And it would all be undercover. We've indicated it here with a dashed line to show that that would come in a future phase. It would not necessarily get constructed at the same time as the facilities building. One of the options that we're going to be looking at as we dial in on budget and pricing for this is there might be a scenario that makes sense where we would construct the shell, the roof, over this area and walls, so that there's the building shell is there in anticipation of adding the bus wash equipment in the future. So it'll just be a matter of us adjusting the scope of this to within the budget. So it may be possible to build out a portion of this in anticipation of adding the equipment later, or waiting and adding the building and equipment all at the same time at a future date.
Yeah, again, so the total intent of this exercise was to place buildings where we think they could best be served in the future. And just like you stubbed out in this corner for this future building here, we would have to provide continued pathways to these other future buildings as we phase through this project, right? If the maintenance building is the next phase, when your bus wash comes online, we need to make sure that there's connectivity and conduits to get, so we're not redigging up everything every time we do a phase. So that was the intent of this workshop that we did.
Christian, I have a question or two. I'm curious, are there any setbacks in the new pavement area? Does there need to be any setbacks from the property line? It looks like it goes very close to the path.
It does get close to the existing property line, but there's not any significant setbacks that we're aware of.
And my other question is that path that I always forget about that goes around the facility. Has there been any thought of the connection to the ODT and where it's going to, where is the crosswalk going to be on State Route 20? And like we're obligated to complete that trail on the transit property, right?
So what's not shown on this is the trail actually is built out on this side. And
Okay.
it's gonna come through over on this area for.
On the Four Corners side,
Pretty close to
roadside.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So their crosswalk, I think, is set slightly back from the
A little
intersection.
back from the intersection.
And then it's gonna come in at that corner down there, the bottom left corner.
And that trail down there. is
Yeah, and that's,
existing.
so the dirt trail, our
Dirt trail, yeah.
upgraded portion in the budget
Okay.
to bring it to the standard, and it's gonna come all the way across the front of the property, across the driveway there. And so the trail that they're proposing on that side is gonna connect down to where the ODT crosses Four Corners Road. And then continues on.
Would it be better to make that trail the ODT and make it loop around so you're don't have trail people crossing our driveway?
Budget wise, I think it's gonna be more expensive.
It's gonna be a lot more.
Yeah, and keep in mind that what you see here is very high level conceptual, and as you hone in on things as a final before it ever goes to construction, all those things will have to be vetted out.
Right.
Thanks. It was great.
Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll turn the time back over to the board.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Kristen, Sydney.
You bet.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks,
I
you
have a
guys.
request for a future thing. Can you put a little bus on there somewhere so I can relate to the scale of it?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, we also, one of the things that he did was to make sure that the buses could turn. They did an auto turn, which is a program that takes the size of a bus and runs it through to make sure there's no obstacles in its way. So yeah, he can easily put that block on the bus on there for you.
Will do.
Idea.
Wellington School District had a problem with that before.
Sure. Okay.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think next on new business is left turn, right turn, the comprehensive operational analysis, which I think we're all looking forward to.
So we are so excited to have left turn, right turn here. So we have Pia and Graham returning. And Pia and Graham, was there any, oh, Matt's here as well. And will it be the three of you today? Okay, perfect. So as the board knows, we've been working on our comprehensive operational analysis since last June. It's hard to believe it's been almost a year, but we're so excited because we're now to the point where we have recommendations and we have a rough draft, if you will. So very excited to turn it over to left turn, right turn to present some of the recommendations and kind of walk us through the process thus far and then what we still have left to do.
Great. Thank you very much, folks. You can hear me okay? All right. I will just share my screen and we'll dive right into our presentation. And there we go. It's been a little while since I've used Zoom, so there's some new features that I'm not familiar with. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Latavo, and I'm joined by Pia and Graham here from Left Turn, Right Turn, and we've been working with the JTA staff on this very exciting comprehensive operational analysis for you folks. And we'll just sort of dive into what today's it's like. So I want to start by reintroducing the team. You know, it's we have quite a big team behind us supporting, and I'm really we're at a point now where I think it's just, it's nice to sort of see all the faces who've been supporting this initiative over the past several months. I'll also begin with a bit of a brief project status update. So kind of reflect on where we've been over the past several months and kind of give you a bit of a heads up of what sort of is coming down the line. After that, I'll be turning it over to Graham, who will walk through some of the key recommendations, specifically around the route modifications. And then Pia will go ahead and discuss the implementation timelines and key next steps. So as I mentioned before, we have quite the team behind us. I am the project manager on this assignment. I'm a senior consultant and innovation lead, as we call ourselves, at Left Turn, Right Turn. We're a specialized transit consulting firm that also does accessibility planning and policy. And with me, like I mentioned before, I have Pia Dimayuga, who has been our transit planner and engagement lead as part of this assignment, as well as Graham Houtman, who is also supporting in transit planning analysis. But behind the scenes, we have Jordan, Ria, and Bowen as well, who've all been supporting this initiative over the past several months. So I'll just dive into a real quick status update. So, and I want to sort of reflect first on what the project goals for this COA were when we first launched. So of course, as part of most operational analysis reports and assessments, the core is really to look at the current operations and to make sure that, we fully understand how things are working from an operational perspective, a customer experience perspective, and an equity perspective. From there, we've gone ahead and developed recommendations to restructure some of those existing services. So new routes, adjusted routes, and new services to improve the value for riders and residents. We are also recommending some different funding and financial strategies as well. So in our full comprehensive analysis report, we have some details around what the cost of some of these things are and exactly how best to go about funding them. Another key goal was to identify some opportunities to improve staff resourcing, operations staff hiring and retention. And then, of course, there is a state requirement, as well as, a general a keen interest within the community to improve interconnection, sustainable transportation, and regional connectivity. So this has been the project schedule over the past several months. So we launched in June and then really dove in early July as part of this assignment. We had a great project sprint that really kicked off some of that discovery and analysis, and we completed that in August. And we've gone through one round of engagement already, as well as some significant work to fully understand what the current needs are and the current state of the services. So now we're actually all the way out here where we have a draft final report. We've submitted that to staff. We've received and addressed their feedback on that. And we're just about to lead into public engagement. So we wanted to make sure that now that staff have had that opportunity to report, that we are coming to you and presenting some of the key feedback and key components. And then from there, we'll go into public engagement and refine that final report. And the next time that you'll hear from us will be in June of this year. So once we kind of pulled all of those initial current findings together and we pulled together the results from that first round of engagement, we developed a bit of a guiding framework for our analysis and development of new recommendations. So we have several different pieces, and I'm not going to go through all of this in a lot of detail. I think it's really just to show and share with you the amount of work that's kind of gone into the development of these recommendations in the back end. We've really tried to make sure that everything can map back to the strategic alignment of this assignment, to the specific guidelines that we've developed as part of this report, and really, all of those initial goals and objectives for the service and for this operational analysis at the end. So with that, I'll pass it over to Graham, and I will invite him to discuss some of the key recommendations.
Thanks very much, Matt, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited to present some of the some of the options and some of the recommendations that we've come up with over the last few months. So I'll just kick it off by talking about recommendations in Port Townsend. As you can see here, we've proposed a realignment of the routes 2 and 3. So currently those are the Castle Hill route and then the Fort Worden. And under this recommendation, we'd be merging those together to sort of try and still maintain service to the sort of core areas of Sheridan Street, San Juan Avenue, and the Fort Worden area, while being able to increase the frequency to 30-minute frequency. So providing more frequent service in the core areas, while having the opportunity to maintain sort of a base level of coverage on the Cook Avenue, Hastings Avenue area further west, with microtransit, as we'll talk about a little bit later. So just sort of hinting at that. Another thing that I want to just mention before I go further with some of these is that we will talk about implementation and the timelines for phasing in these recommendations a little bit later. So what I'm doing now is not introducing these with any sort of timeline or in any sort of hierarchical order. We're just going based on a regional sort of typology. So starting with Port Townsend, then we'll look at the tri-area, and then finally the regional services. So that's it for this new Route 23. As you can see, it will be running in a similar fashion as now with that clockwise service. And so jumping into now the extension of the Route 4 with the Upper Simsway. So this proposal for this recommendation is to change this service to extend further east past Katai Lagoon onto Kearney Street, and then maintaining service on Route 19 and Discovery Street before coming back on Simsway and passing by the healthcare center there. Under these changes, the 30-minute frequency could be maintained, and extending the route sort of is feasible, as there's currently a bit of a higher layover time at Haynes Place. So adding a few minutes to the service won't change the requirements in terms of service hours. And we're also sort of simplifying the alignment here to make schedules a little bit easier to read, and then reducing overlap with the Route 2 and 3. So yeah, and I think that's it for Route 4. So we can go on to the recommendation for Route 11. So as of currently, we have 2 iterations of the Route 11. There's the 11A and 11B. 11A, of course, running kind of counterclockwise on Water Street and Lawrence Street, and Route 11B runs clockwise on Lawrence and Water Street. And so this recommendation is to invert, or not to invert, but to do away with the Route 11B and to sort of simplify the alignment and the routing, which would enable service frequency to be upgraded to 20 minutes. And this is sort of a recommendation that kind of came out of discussions with JTA staff and also public engagement, where we sort of heard that folks didn't always have a perfect understanding of how often services would come, where with this sort of, because of the way that the service is now with 30-minute frequency on each of the 2 directions of service, it sort of appeared to some folks that the bus only ran once an hour, when in fact they were able to take the service just going the opposite direction every 30 minutes. So now under this proposal, you'd be able to take the route every 20 minutes, and it would always be running in the same direction. So a little bit more legible for passengers. So those are sort of the key recommendations for the Port Townsend services. So now we'll jump down into the tri-area. So the first recommendation here is to introduce a local tri-area loop service. And then the sort of intention for this service is sort of twofold. The first being that tri-area is a very well-performing route, the current Route 6A and 6B, and also a very significant population center in Eastern Jefferson County. And so the recommendation here is to sort of siphon off some of the current service on the 6A and 6B, which runs 5 times per day, each of those. So that's 10 trips total to tri-area. And to kind of take some of that service and divert it solely to the tri-area, providing a little bit more of a local service so that folks can take transit to do kind of the local day-to-day trips that they need to do, while offering a connection to a proposed tri-area transit hub, which would be at the corner of Nest Corner Road and I believe I'm mistaken on the name of the road here. On the corner of Nest Corner Road and Cedar Ave, I believe it is. So this would offer local tri-area residents still the ability to take transit to get up into Port Townsend and then also to other parts of Jefferson County on some of the more regional routes, but also maintaining service at a high level within the area. And then the recommendation for this service would be for it to run every 30 minutes. And then it also sort of ties in with the other recommendation we have for tri-area services. So go to the next slide, please, which is the introduction of a new Route 6, which is a tri-area express. And so here you can sort of see between the Route 5 and the Route 6, that they really together would be offering the same level of service as the current 6A and 6B, but sort of disentangling those two routes to sort of make sure that you're hitting the targets of each of them. This service, the Tri-Area Express, offering a direct connection between the Tri-Area and Port Townsend, and then the Tri-Area Local Loop offering some of that local connectivity for local trips in the community.
Graham, would this one just reverse the route when it was going back?
Pardon?
Would this new Route 6 just reverse the route as it goes back into Port Townsend?
Yes, that's right. So I think the intention is for it to run into Haynes Place and then to come back and serve the Tri-Area Hub and just sort of run back and forth on that alignment. I hope that answers your question.
Tri-Area Hub is across from the library, across in that empty space there.
On the same side as the library. So right now you can fit at least 2 buses where our current library stop is.
And we also see with the inclusion of the pool in the future and the community center there that there's going to be an increased need for transit to that area and also just sort of a hub for activity. So I think that could be a really impactful area for a future transit hub. Okay, so I think if that's all the questions I have there, I have the camera off. So if anybody else has anything, please let me know. But we sort of tied in with the Tri-Area Transit Hub as well already. So as Nicole said, there's currently space for 2 buses on Cedar Avenue going south, and then space as well on the north side. And so with the inclusion of the future pool and also the development of housing through Habitat for Humanity on Cedar Avenue, this is an area that is getting to really deserve transit a lot in the future. And so this is sort of our proposal for how to meet that need. And then I think from here, we can sort of go on and talk about some of the regional services. First, the establishment of a transit hub at the Olympic Peninsula Gateway Visitor Center. So this on the corner of Route 104 and Route 19. This is a way to improve regional connectivity by routing these sort of 3 routes, which are running in the case of Brennan towards South County, and then Kingston Express and Paulsbo over the Hood Canal Bridge into Kitsap County, and to Kingston and Paulsbo respectively. And so to sort of bring all of those routes together at the Olympic Peninsula Gateway Visitor Center, you can really offer a lot of connectivity, and so that folks who are coming from Brennan or Quilcene don't need to come all the way up into the Tri-Area or Four Corners or Haynes Place if their final destination is Port Ludlow or Paulsbo, Kitsap County, or further on into Seattle or Edmonds. This also would offer the connection with the Clallam 123 straight shot, so that can offer service to the Bainbridge Island Ferry, which is a little bit faster of a connection to downtown Seattle, and then also, of course, being Clallam Transit going into Sequim as well. So the sort of idea with this is to offer a lot of regional connectivity without sacrificing too much in the way of service running time, and also sort of tying in with another connection, which we'll talk about, I think, on the next slide here, which is to connect the regional routes into the Tri-Area Transit Hub. And so by sort of simplifying the routing in the Tri-Area to make sure that all of the routes align and serve the Tri-Area Hub, you can offer a similar level of connectivity, or sorry, similar gains in connectivity by ensuring that all routes reach there and that folks can travel into the Tri-Area more seamlessly than they can now. And so this, of course, involves routing trips away from the Four Corners hub, but towards the Tri-Area where there's a little bit more, there's a few more amenities, there's more of a population center, and there's more of an impetus for trips or trip drivers, as we like to say. So this is sort of, yes, you have a question?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I guess just a definition of a transit hub. The Gateway one transit hub that we're talking about has substantial parking, and where I don't see any parking opportunities at the Tri-Area Hub. Would there be parking for single occupancy vehicles there?
No.
That's a good question. I don't think that was part of our discussion thus far. It sounds like maybe Nicole's answered that a little bit.
Yeah, I said no.
The idea is that it's a transfer point hub, where you can get off one bus and get on another, and so utilizing the park and rides as much as possible. But you know, future development and Hadlock time will tell what opportunities we have in that area. So
okay, thank you.
I'll just add on to that really quickly. This is Matt from LTRT. I believe that down the line, as the progress on planning for that new pool comes online, there may be opportunities to work with that development and introduce some additional space for whether that's for park and ride parking or improvements to the hub itself for transit vehicles as well. So I think in the longer term, so beyond kind of the scope of or the timelines of this specific plan, there will be more opportunities to enhance this space and make it a more fleshed out multi-purpose transit hub.
Thanks, Matt. Perfect. Okay. And yeah, I think also, you know, offering a little bit of that local connectivity through the Route 5, and then also recognizing that there's a considerable amount of parking and park and ride opportunities, both at the Haynes Place and the Olympic Peninsula Gateways Visitor Center hubs. And so, yeah, opportunities at the Tri-Area Hub as well. Also, final point on this, to offer that connection, we have recommended that the Route 8 Squim route, instead of continuing on Route 20, which is just out of frame here on the left, and perhaps actually, Matt, it's better to go on to the next slide because you can sort of see the full routing, to be routed further east onto Anderson Lake Road so that it can connect with the Tri-Area Transit Hub. And so that has a small impact to runtime, but something that we, through discussion with JTA, and we feel more than makes up for in terms of connectivity, the small impact to running time. Okay, and so then this also sort of connects to the microtransit discussion, which I sort of hinted at earlier. Another one of our recommendations is to pilot a home to hub microtransit service, which home to hub sort of indicates that folks in the service areas could call or book a trip and have that deliver them into a key hub on the transit service, or another destination that is within the service area. And so lots of connections in Port Townsend, specifically at the Haynes Place hub, for instance. And so the sort of the most highly recommended or the most feasible option in terms of microtransit, so for us so far, is the Cape George and Cook Avenue area. And so that's sort of taking over for some of that service on the Castle Hill route, which would be siphoned off onto the Route 23. And so to provide service to Cape George and those areas in Western Port Townsend. And then in the future, services to Marrowstone Island, Port Ludlow, and Paradise Bay should be considered for microtransit.
Can I ask
so with that,
sorry.
Oh, sure. Yep, absolutely.
One other stakeholder group, I don't know if you guys talked to them, but the Port of Port Townsend's very interested, has been forever in getting access to the airport, which is a growing concern. And would that be a possible down the road opportunity for this mode of microtransit?
So some of these options for the regional is, instead of routing on Highway 20, we would be routing on Highway 19. So from there, it would be working with the state, it's a state highway, to identify places where a bus could safely pull over near the airport.
So there is, yeah, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
For those of us new to transit, can you just give me this applicable definition of microtransit in this context? What are we talking about here?
Short bus.
Georgia,
Sure.
what was happening?
Graham, do you want me to tackle that?
Yeah, I think Matt is probably best positioned to answer that. Go for it, Matt.
Thanks, folks. So microtransit, the concept of microtransit has a lot of different names. You may have heard it referred to as on-demand transit or flexible transit. But the idea of this is providing more demand responsive service in a defined area to which is usually has either some geographic limitations to providing efficient fixed route service, or the demand is likely to be low for fixed route service. And so the intent here is to make sure that you're providing good quality coverage service in these areas without necessarily competing with a taxi trip, for example. So microtransit is not intended to be a direct door-to-door service like perhaps a dial-a-ride service might be. In this case, it's really about providing some coverage for areas that are not served right now and not well served by fixed route, even if we could introduce it just now, and introducing that service at the start, helping to build up that demand, and then down the road maybe revisiting and considering it as a future opportunity for fixed route expansion.
Okay, and the type of vehicle would vary depending upon the demand and the area?
Yeah, usually we would use smaller vehicles here. So it might be a smaller van, like a dial-a-ride van. In some instances, agencies might employ sedans, so just standard vehicles. But usually, the capacity of these vehicles is under 10 seats. And usually we don't see more than 4 or 5 people on board the vehicle at any one time, and that would be at the top end. Quite often it's a little bit lower than that, and that's reflective of the type of demand that you generally see for services like this.
Okay, thank
I think they're tied into the regular bus schedule. I was kind of shocked to find out dial-a-ride would only take me when I broke my leg to it was worse than the regular bus.
Dial-a-ride mimics when fixed route is in the area. So for Port Ludlow, Brennan, Quilcene, Squim,
It's comparable.
dial-a-ride is there when our fixed route service is in the area. So if a fixed route is not running at that time, dial-a-ride is not running in that area at that time. But this would be more of I'm calling, scheduling a ride. And since there is no fixed route, it would be, Jefferson Transit would have to establish times when that service would be available. But the idea is that for the Cape George, Cook Avenue, since we're pulling fixed route service away from that area, we would want to make sure that we're leaving some kind of service for those that are currently relying on transit.
David, it looks like you've got a question.
Yeah, so is there a reason why we wouldn't want this microtransit to offer point to point, or like basically mirror dial-a-ride for a general population? Because it seems to me like this is selling short what this could be for no clear good reason.
I can jump in and help answer that as well. So the challenge with providing point-to-point trips is it is very expensive and very difficult to do efficiently. You end up having a situation where you'll have vehicles trying to run all across the county to pick up and drop off folks at their specific destinations and locations. It can make trip times very long, or you have to put a lot more resources out on the road in order to deliver those trips. So generally speaking, it's not feasible for a transit agency to provide that level of service, even in relatively low demand areas. So we try to really emphasize collect these services as sort of a collector service, if you will, that will then connect you to the fixed route service. In much the same way that if somebody is taking a regional route from Brennan into Haynes Place, they then have to transfer onto a local fixed route service in Port Townsend in order to get to their final destination. Hopefully that provides some clarity.
It does. I mean, I have some follow-ups, but John, you can jump in here.
My question's real quick, and it's actually more of kind of a point of information, which in your slides, I didn't see that you're expanding or suggesting to expand the route to Brennan, but I noticed that in the detail of the report, and I know there's some people in the room that are particularly interested in that, and I think your suggestion was for a midday Brennan,
That's right.
additional route to Brennan. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right, John. Thanks for catching that. Yes, that is one of the recommendations, and one of the ones that, as Pia will talk about in a few minutes here, is implemented very early on in the project after we get the go ahead here. So yes.
All right, David, you're off.
Yeah. So I hear what you were saying. I think it was Graham or Matt. One of you was describing the reasoning behind not having a point to point. Seems to me that if we had a defined catchment area, we could avoid some of the concerns you raised about trying to take cross-county trips. I mean, but what we're doing by having the Cape George Cook Avenue area just delivering to Haynes Place is providing, I mean, it's great to provide the Lifeline service to people who have no other way of getting around. But what I see here is we're not going to incentivize people to use transit. This is just going to be for people who really have no other option, many of whom already qualify for Dial-A-Ride. So, I mean, I'm worried that this doesn't necessarily solve a lot of the kind of bigger problems, the more existential issues that we have as transit, including how we actually get people to use the bus system. My sense has been for a long time, smaller, more nimble buses that can operate effectively similar to a taxi service or an Uber, but through through a governmental agency would be a pretty efficient model that could do a lot more for our community. But that doesn't seem to be what's on the table here. So I'm hoping we could, I'd love to see us go that route and not just be a Lifeline service.
So I'll just one final comment on that, and then we can move on. As far as things like the Dial-A-Ride service, right now Dial-A-Ride service I don't believe is provided to the Cape George area because there is no service there today. So even though they may qualify for it, right now there is no service provided to that area at all. So there is no way for folks like to travel. The other piece to this as well is there's a lot of, I'll say, conflicting information on the level of efficiency of on-demand and microtransit type services. And the overwhelming evidence right now is that point-to-point services are among the least efficient services to provide if you're trying to deliver mass transit. That service, it's very expensive. You can see that in how taxis tend to price their fares. It's very expensive to deliver, and by delivering it through a government agency, you're not really necessarily saving any of those costs. As nice as it would be to be able to provide folks, everybody a door-to-door service, it'll be very difficult to ever compete at that level in any in a community with a limited, capacity, limited financial capacity to deliver their transit. So we tend to avoid. In the transit space, we tend to avoid that market. The reality is the best way to incentivize transit use is to put it out there and share that it's reliable and effective. And as folks become more comfortable and confident with the service, they'll try to use it. One of the things that I'll also stress is in a lot of communities that have introduced on-demand service and microtransit service, they're finding young people as being one of the primary new users. And these are folks who would otherwise be depending on parents or family members to drive them to and from events or to and from school or practices. and they're finding that they get a new level of independence. So we are, in a way, creating a new incentive for transit use. It's just not coming from folks who already own a car. And the reality is, in most communities, unless traffic is the significant issue, you're not going to be incentivizing folks to leave their car at home if they already have one. It's more about training the next generation of potential users to either delay or avoid purchasing their own car. And I'll turn it back to Jam, but unless someone else has another.
Matt, before we continue on, Jefferson Transit right now is providing 2-day-a-week dial-a-ride service to Cape George, Marrowstone, and Calipoint.
Not fixed routes.
But not fixed route service, just dial-a-ride service, 2 days a week.
Thank you for the clarification, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, I think that pretty well concludes the sort of the key recommendations, unless there was any other comments. But I'll happily pass it off to my colleague Pia to talk through the implementation timeline.
Thanks, Karen. Oh, another question?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just saying it's exciting.
I do have a
Okay, good. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I have a specific route question. The number 11, now that it's going to go essentially a clockwise pattern, was it considered the opportunity to take a right turn at Benedict, which is where the Safeway gas station is? Because it hurdles back and forth on Sims Way to very little effect. Nobody, usually very few people I think get on Sims Way, but there is a little mini business district there on Washington Street in the port, and the port itself is not very well served. So I'm just curious if that was considered. Now that it's so, you couldn't do it if it was the two different directions, but if we're going one direction, there's actually a possibility there. So was that thought about?
Yeah, I believe we did look at that. One of the things that I would have been thinking about in this consideration is like the catchment area, the walk shed of stops in that area, because it's much closer to the water. A lot more of the kind of walkable area is taken up by the water there. But I think it is an interesting consideration, something that we can take away for successive rounds or for public engagement. So yeah, it's definitely a good thought. Thanks, Ben.
I would acknowledge that might take it over the 20-minute route. I don't know if it adds another minute or two, but
yes, it probably would add some running time as well. But yeah, worthy of consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another route question. What
Sure.
makes you think that running the number 1 through the gateway is going to make a difference?
Could you give me a little more context on what you mean by make a difference?
Well, you said it would improve the connectivity, or I mean, right now, the way it's set up, you got to spend the night somewhere to use the bus service out to the ferry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why you think moving the number 1 over there and then up Route 19 is going to make a difference.
So the intention here is to provide connectivity. I think sort of, if I'm understanding your phrasing right, it's to make sure that folks don't need to stay the night if they want to take the ferry out. And so the idea being that if you offer that connectivity to the other routes, particularly the 14, which is the Kingston Ferry, Kingston Express, if you offer that connectivity directly in the sort of near-ish to the Hood Canal Bridge, as the Olympic Peninsula Gateway Visitor Center is, if you offer that connectivity, it's possible for folks to make the trip out to Kingston Express a little bit faster, a little bit more easily, and then hopefully in a way that makes it so they don't have to spend the night anywhere. I hope that answers your question.
Well, that depends on the schedule. So you're thinking about running the 1 through the gateway, it's the only route that only has 4 runs a day, but you're talking about putting them all through there?
Yep, and yes, and it will be. Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Regardless of the schedule of these other connecting routes.
So just to provide a little bit more background here. So we have not gone through the exercise of making sure that all the schedules are aligned. But the intent here is to make sure that any trip connecting at the Olympic Peninsula Gateway, let's say the Brennan Route 1 northbound out towards Haynes Place is met very closely by a southbound bus that would be heading towards the Kingston Ferry or Paulsbo. So the intent is that we have that opportunity now to make that direct connection across. And the other opportunity here that's not visualized on the screen is that you now have connections into Clallam as well. And so right now, all of those trips, you would have to go into Haynes Place and then back in order to make that happen. We're creating a lot more opportunities now to make connections by using the Gateway Center here to make those connections easier in a more time efficient way and to really improve the overall regional connectivity. That was I believe one of the concerns or one of the questions that was brought up before is right now, if you wanted to get to the ferry, you had to get all the way into Port Townsend first, stay the night, and then take the next trip out in the day. And so that was sort of one of the ways that we were hoping to address that challenge.
And it would depend on the scheduling though. So you're gonna
Of course, yep, absolutely. But again, like that can be worked out and will be worked out as part of the implementation of these changes.
Just a quick time check. We're almost at the end of the time for you guys. So just want to let everybody know that.
Thank you very much, John. We'll try and go through the last few slides relatively quickly.
Thankfully, I think we only have a couple of slides left, so hopefully these will go by relatively quickly. So here is a bit of our roadmap. There's kind of more details available in the draft report, but these are highlighting especially the ones that Graham and Matt have covered in terms of the specific route changes. So as John also pointed out, there is a recommendation to add a midday run on Route 1. So hopefully increasing that access for South County and increasing the connectivity to some of those other regional routes. And we, that is something that can kind of be done this year, and I believe JTA staff are also on board with that. The other two service recommendations that could be done this year is to realign Route 4, kind of extend further east, as well as increasing the frequency on the 11 to that 20-minute service. Looking into 2026 is looking more at the new Route 23 and piloting the microtransit service, as well as introducing that Route 5, which is the local tri-area loop, and rerouting some of the regional routes into that tri-area transit hub. And then on to 2027 and beyond, thinking more about whether or not the Tri-Area Express Route 6 is needed, looking at that Gateway Visitor Center, and looking at other areas within Jefferson County that might be appropriate for microtransit. Looking now at kind of the high-level next steps, as Matt mentioned before, we've done one round of engagement, but now we think it's time to come back to the community, come back to the public, and say, here's what we've got. What do you think about it? We are still finalizing the exact methods of reaching out to the public, but wanting a good mix of online materials as well as in-person opportunities to engage with people and hear from them, communicate our ideas and then hear from them whether or not they think that would work for them. So I think we've identified a couple of elements to that engagement here. And then the next slide just shares high-level questions that we want to ask the public and various stakeholders. What do you think about the recommendations? Whether or not the changes will actually motivate you to use transit more, whether there's anything that we missed, and ensuring that our implementation timeline is aligned with, their priorities. John.
Yeah, really great information. I read the full report and I wanted to share with you guys the demographic data that you put into that report is really top drawer. It's really really great information. I've looked a lot at demographic data in our county in terms of health data, but your information is just really well put together and I think very helpful. I did want to kind of share with you something that I've brought up a few times before, and that's I'm still concerned about transporting kids, particularly back and forth to practice for sports events. And I didn't see that addressed anywhere in either the slides or the report. So that's still something that I'm hoping to try to get more information on. And then really long range, still hope to see if there are opportunities for school transportation and Jefferson Transit to kind of continue to collaborate and work together. But other than that, I just thought it was really great information and really appreciate your meticulous detail in the report.
Thanks,
Thank you,
John.
John.
And I'll just respond to I think specifically the routing for supporting the high school students kind of getting back and forth. Recognizing that some of those activities are now combined between the two high schools, or sorry, between Chimicum High School and Port Townsend High School. And so the rerouting of the regional routes through the Tri-Area Hub also, I believe, stop at Chimicum High School. And so that does provide a little bit more of a direct and frequent connection between, okay, so maybe not all of them, but quite a few of them do. And then the new Route 6 Express would also provide that kind of clear connectivity, at least to Haynes Place.
A couple of years.
Pardon me, I didn't quite hear that.
Well, wasn't that part, you said it was farther out, like a couple of years you would?
Yes, the rerouting I think is 2026 for the Tri-Area rerouting, and then the new Route 6 would be potentially in 2027, but you would have that added connectivity in 2026.
And I'll just add, as far as the Tri-Area Express, that Route 6, we're kind of envisioning that as filling in some of the gaps. So where the regional routes maybe are not providing service at odd times, or perhaps are not passing the Chimicum High School after the bell time, that would be a good opportunity to provide that particular route and that particular connection at that moment. So that's sort of some of the things that down the line, as the schedules are built out, as additional changes and tweaks are made over the coming years, that those are some of the things that would kind of go into that evaluation.
Thanks for that clarification.
I guess I'd like to say thank you too. I think this is really strong recommendations. I'm going to dig into the report more. I think as we try to get it out there, our goal is always to increase ridership, right? And 177 folks that fill out the survey in the beginning was not one of our shining moments. And something we discovered from working on the aquatic recreation facility and trying to get public engagement on that was working with the PUD to get that survey and information. I want everyone to look at this as we're trying to move it out. And for less than $2,000, you can get it in everybody's power bill.
I will say, for the first round of engagement that we did, the PUD did allow us to put it in their newsletter.
Okay.
So that's something that we've done. We've really, I believe, had one big successful survey. And that really came about when we saw Commissioner Dean posted on her Facebook.
Right.
And all of her Facebook followers took the survey, but we've never seen a survey response like we did with the Kingston Express. So I will say, when we start advertising and when Kelly is doing some of these, if everyone in this room could help share and spread the word, that would be appreciated, because it's
through our school districts too. We have new partners at the table as well, but putting it into the newsletter of the scene, and more access is more access. I think it's important to get out there.
And I know that at the Wilson Fair, 60 people or 60 groups got surveyed there. just from that contact, I think that's a real weakness, is getting it out to everybody. To get input from all stakeholders.
We do have a new communication specialist at the county who will be working with all of us as commissioners and with our department heads and partners to look for content. So that's a great new tool for us to be able to get information out. We can absolutely mobilize that tool.
Part of the difficulty is I don't get the information so I can put it out to other people. I know I rode the bus when they were doing the survey, and there was 2 people on the bus asking riders if they'd fill out the form. And there was, it was pretty limited for the amount of personnel involved. There was like 2 people working with like 6 people on the bus. I think since we have a person who does that kind of stuff, that we can have more coverage and get more input. There's 177 out of, how many is in our county? 20,000?
34.
Not that sterling.
And I think these are great. I just want to get it out there, I guess is my point, and emphasizing strong work.
All right, we're about 10 minutes over, so I think we probably should move on to the next topic, but great job, you guys. Really appreciate the information. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, folks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
All right, so next on our agenda is the Gateway Visitor Center, a project update. Nicole, I'm assuming that that's you.
Yes. So I included an update, a written update, so I won't read through that. But Jefferson Transit, Clallam Transit, and Jefferson County continue to work on some site plans for the, our hope was to have a paved area for the Gateway Visitor Center, and Commissioner Brotherton has attended all the meetings, so feel free to jump in. But we included 2 site plans. So SCJ Alliance has narrowed it down to 2 site plans that we feel would work for transit buses. In your packet, the first site plan has the visitor center building in place, and it has buses, kind of a bus loop, if you will, around the perimeter of the building. And the second plan has a separated area, so one area for parking and then one area for what would be just a transit loop. The second site plan does not have the building remaining, the visitor center remaining. SCJ Alliance would like the 3 entities to make a decision about which site plan they should be moving forward on. So that was just a question I would like to get some feedback from the board about, after reviewing both site plans, was there one that we would like to move forward with, understanding that we would need to be requesting that from Jefferson County, as this is Jefferson County property, not Jefferson Transit property.
So tell me about taking the building out.
We have the site plans.
It involves removing the building. Well, there's not, I mean, if you can see the one plan, basically, I think that the plan that separates bus traffic from single occupancy vehicles, the one that's practical, removes the building. The building right now houses a visitor information center that's open most days. So it would just, is that building important to stay there is the question for Jefferson County, not for us to decide here, but yeah, it's removal of the building.
If it's gone, you would lose the visitor information stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't see a huge loss there personally, but you know, and I don't.
See a lot of people in the parking lot anyway that would make a hazard for, that you would need to separate the buses.
It's a fairly high traffic
There's a lot of cars there.
area.
Start getting buses.
When Jim Fetzer, Greg and myself were there with SCJ Alliance, there was traffic moving in and out at a steady stream. There's also large vehicles that lay over in that area. So anytime that you're mixing private vehicles and commercial vehicles, you are at a higher risk. Can you scroll down to the second option? So the second option, by removing the building, we would make that parking area really an area for passenger vehicles, not necessarily large trucks. And then you would have a separate entrance and exit for transit vehicles, both Clallam Transit, Jefferson Transit, and then possibly the Dungeness line as well.
And you can, if you look at the numbers from the Gateway Visitor Center, they get more than 10 times as many contacts through the QR code on the sign outside than they do people actually walking inside the Visitor Information Center. So it's we're engaged in some sticky, you know, conversations with our tourism community as well. The relative value of a Visitor Information Center. Well, I mean, I know that it costs about $120,000 a year to operate the Visitor Information Center, but the tangible outputs are pretty difficult to measure. So, you know, maybe a desynchronized, asynchronous Visitor Information Center might work as effectively as the building, which progressively takes more and more maintenance. We put about $10,000 into it last year to just kind of fix the old building, which is has no bathroom facilities, right? There's a porta-john. So we're talking about other amenities as well. There's a well in the property across the street. Jefferson County is also looking at relocating our transfer station across the street, a little farther up Beaver Valley Road. And then they would be building a pretty robust large on-site septic system, and access to that well would potentially create amenities like real bathrooms there, maybe even, you know, a food truck or something, and create a transportation hub rather than the visitor hub, which I would say is less successful than it being a transportation hub right now where people meet and leave cars and such. So it's a different use that we're considering.
Sorry.
I mostly go there in the evening. I mean, I would say only a third of the time I'm there is the building actually open. And but there's always big trucks and stuff in there, and I wonder about that. Like if those get excluded, what impact would that have?
We talked about that some, and you know, the other plan, there's still room in front of the building for large trucks. With this, there's, you know, moving trucks and things, smaller trucks, you know, box trucks. I mean, not moving trucks, but box trucks and everything, I think can use this space. But I think with this design, the idea is that it would not be attractive for large trucks to pull in there where they'd have to do a wide turn.
Which they can go wherever they want now.
Yeah, yeah. You can get flagged down anyway, right?
Yep.
And I think maybe some consideration there is that the upkeep and maintenance of the concrete out there would be a lot longer and maybe cheaper if we didn't have big trucks, commercial trucks, utilizing that space. So depending on how they rate that concrete when they pour it, that might change the cost of the project if they have to consider it. So just thinking about how when we were doing our parking lot expansion here, we didn't rate the concrete in this area for large trucks. And then when we actually built the building and they poured the driveway, we had to actually come back 2 or 3 years later to upgrade it. Yeah.
But the other design would need more of that, right? Because for the buses obviously need it. And this way you're just doing the little loop on the left with the substantially thicker concrete, and you can just use the asphalt.
Yeah, asphalt for the cars.
Not a strong preference for me, but I prefer the plan that removes the building and separates transit and and parking.
I do as well. But SCJ is looking for a direction, so if that's the consensus is
Well,
that,
I have one question about it. So if you remove the building, is there like a bus stop, shed, shelter kind of thing somewhere?
yes, we would add in bus shelters and presumably a place for individuals to scan a QR code to learn about, visitor
Some kind of
information.
panel. Wonderful attractions here.
Nicole, do you have what you need from us?
So I will reach back out to our county partners and let them know that the flavor of the board is to go with the plan that removes the building. It creates a separate
Flavor.
a separate entrance. Was that a funny word? Okay.
A nice way of saying a strong suggestion from JTA to remove the building.
Okay.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Is that, we're talking about likely property acquisition, really, for that, right? Or is that what is that premature?
I think it is something that the board should consider, is if Jefferson Transit is moving in the direction of creating a regional hub at this point, at this place, should this be something that we start discussing in the future is kind of next steps towards acquiring this property?
You're talking about acquiring by the transit or by the county?
By the transit.
Yeah, for us to own it and then maintain it and upgrade it.
Have a say about what
Yeah.
happens here.
How much, or what rating our concrete will be.
I mean, about finding the funding source. Posing that to the county.
We already saw our financial.
Yeah.
How much
You could buy
does
it with
property-
1 month's net revenue, really.
How much does property cost that you're looking at?
Depending on how much the county will sell it to us for.
Legally have to sell it for an appraised value,
$1.
so we'd have to get an appraisal on it.
$1.
Yeah.
$1.
John's idea.
We do the 50-year lease sometimes for $1, but for selling it, it's gotta be appraised value. It's whether the value of the building's included. And I don't even know what the depreciated value of the building is, so it would.
But if we take the building out, no.
You guys can keep the building.
I mean, that's a negotiation. I don't know about that, I think that's something that you talk about when you say, hey, we're interested in making this a park and ride, and really, I think this is the highest and best use would be to make this kind of hub that connects, Quilcene to Kingston and all sorts of different areas. So I'm excited about the possibilities, but it's.
So I think if the board is interested in directing staff to explore that conversation with the county, we can start that
I'm
conversation.
interested in that. I think it'd be worth at least the discussion.
Okay.
But we're not talking billions, we're talking thousands.
No, if you look on the, just on the GIS, I think it's in there at like $100,000 or something.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure if that includes the value of the building, which is maybe negative. Because knocking it
Which is
down.
lower than what I anticipated it to be, so,
Right.
So staff will start researching and having some conversations and then come back in June with an update.
It's good.
And as a friendly reminder, this project needs to be billed and paid for and sent to WashDOT by the end of June. So we have a very, very tight turnaround.
Just the design, not.
Just the design, but still, it's
Yeah.
been a fast moving project.
All right, I'm gonna move us along to resolution 2511, which is on-call owners representative contract with Barker Creek Consulting. And Nicole, I'm assuming you'll give us any background that we need.
So I included a memo regarding why we went out for to identify an on-call owner's representative. In the past year, we've done a lot of work with RFPs and trying to source a consulting firm, staff, so on and so forth. It really does make sense for Jefferson Transit to have an on-call owner's rep to help with projects as they arise. We will be able to move quicker on developing some projects. You know, some are large, some are small. This request for the board is Jefferson Transit went out and did the procurement for an on-call owner's representative. We followed our procedure. You know, we had the bid out. We did an evaluation. When the responses came back, we selected Barker Creek Consulting. This request does not have a monetary value, but I did want to bring this contract before the board for full disclosure and transparency. Any future contracts over 25,000, I would be required to come to the board for further approval on projects or utilizing Barker Creek Consulting. But this really was an effort to better position Jefferson Transit in the future. If projects do arise, that we would be able to act more efficiently, if you will. So this request, again, no monetary value, but we are asking, I am asking for authorization to sign an on-call owner's rep contract with Barker Creek Consulting for a period of 3 years with the extension, the possibility of an extension by 2 years if necessary.
I'll just offer a little bit of experience. I've been both an owner's rep on construction projects and worked with owner's reps on construction projects. And I can tell you that they save you a lot of time and money in very tangibly in just sort of getting you more quickly through the process and not falling into pitfalls that are sort of standard in the industry. So I'm highly in favor of this and would be happy to make a motion if we're ready.
For a player, yeah, make a motion.
All right, with Blair, I would make a motion to approve resolution number 25-11, authorizing the general manager to execute a contract with Barker Creek Consulting.
I'll second.
Any more discussion before voting? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, on to resolution 25-12, which is technologies project manager, left turn, right turn.
So JTA is seeking someone to contract with to have a transit technology project manager. We're wanting to do 2 projects pretty much in the span of a year or maybe a little additional time. But we are currently very outdated with our paratransit software. So we're going to look to implement some new software. And we also lack a functioning CAD-AVL system, which would be the computer-aided dispatch and automated vehicle location in our fixed route separate buses. So some of the benefits to that are you can have real-time passenger information, reporting tools. We've heard from the public that they're wanting to have some sort of, where's my bus, or a way to figure out, exactly where the bus is in real time. So with that, since we're trying to get these 2 projects really rolling, we're looking for someone to come in and help give us some recommendations and really do it right this time. Really do it right. So we can get training and just everything we need to do with it. So we did go out and do a formal request for qualifications, and thank you, John. He joined us and it was really helpful. And we came to left turn, right turn as the organization that we want to work with. And if you approve that, then we would love to get going on the project. So we do ask for your approval.
So it start immediately?
Yes, yeah, we want to start as soon as possible. Start identifying, the projects, what we need to get done, have a timeline going, and really move forward.
They would be in advisory capacity. I mean, they would tell you, oh, this is a good thing, that's a good thing.
They're acting in a project manager role, so they would come in, help us do procurement, help us do selection of different softwares, the testing, the implementation phase, and pretty much the whole way through the implementation of these two softwares.
We broke it into 4 phases, so they would work with us throughout, and even to the end where we're looking to have some sort of long-term plan, not necessarily with them long-term, but you know, this is what happens if there's an emergency. This is what we can do if some systems start breaking down. So, you know, the full gamut of it.
Okay. In the COA draft that we just read, they talked about the CAD options. And I think it was only Kitsap County out of our peers around here that have the additional functionality of the where's my bus, you know, end user. But is that kind of a key criteria going into this effort?
Yeah, there are different options, you know, certain modules you can add on to that. And that is definitely a priority because we know that's important. Of course, we're serving the public and they want to know where the bus is. So that's definitely a goal for implementing this. And then some internal technology, you know, so we can do better with our scheduling and, you know, all the data that we would need to provide good substantial service.
I think there's a lot of benefit to having this, you know, at left turn, right turn, or whoever go all the way through. Implementation is, I mean, we go through with the county all the time, you know, conversion to a new system is not something you do, it's something you continue to do.
Iterative, yeah.
Exactly.
So
Their data was great.
it was great, yeah.
Yeah, they've just been really, really fantastic with the last project. They already know our system inside
that's
and out,
like
so
leveraging the work that they've already done. is
exactly.
helpful.
Seems like a natural transition.
As Sarah mentioned, I sat through all the presentations and they were really great. And I think it's really important that we get this right. And I think they'll help us to be able to do that as project managers. So I strongly support this this resolution.
I just want to ditto what John just said because I sat through most of those presentations as well, and I was repeatedly impressed by them, their creativity and their thorough approach to the project that we just are completing with them. So very supportive.
I move to approve resolution 2512.
I'll second.
Any more discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Next is resolution 2513, recommendation from TAG for a bylaws update.
So at the last, I did create a memo just to help explain some of TAG's recommendations. But TAG, to have the opportunity to review their bylaws, we've included a summary of the bylaw changes and some of the high points that they were really focusing on, which was the number of members within the group, and then also who would be eligible to be part of the group. So looking for the ability to diversify the group a bit. So they added some different categories of community members that they would actively be seeking out. In the TAG meeting, they approached the bylaws first, and then they approached a new member application. So in that order is where they made these recommendations. So the first recommendation is requesting that the board approve the bylaws update. And again, the big change is taking that group from a 15-member group down to a 9-member group with a minimum of, currently it's 7 down to 5. The idea being that it's very hard to have an in-depth conversation with a group of 15. PEG also looked to other city and county stakeholder groups, just public groups, and really the number 9 felt a little bit more consistent with what the city and the county is doing. Again, wanting to have some more in-depth conversations, making sure that everyone is heard. 15 is a large group to kind of work with and to get feedback from each member. So TAG is recommending that the board approve the bylaw changes as proposed.
We're talking about the next item too, before we make this,
Can we also, how many actual people, would this be removing people from the board? Is that?
So right now there are 9 members.
Okay, so that's helpful.
but
But yeah,
So there are 9 members. There is a pending application. So if the board approves the bylaw changes, then you would not be approving essentially the new application.
who they're recommending us to appoint.
Yes. There is.
Chairs.
There is.
You know, it's our own little catch-22. We gotta.
There is an option to create a pool of on the ready applicants, if you will. So folks that have expressed interest, and if a position becomes available, Jefferson Transit staff could go to that pool based on when individuals submitted their application and then present that to the board. So in the TAG meeting, they did go through the bylaws first and make this recommendation, and then they talked about the applicant. The idea with the applicant is there was some discussion about it's hard to get individuals to volunteer for public groups, and so if the board isn't approving these bylaws, then they would like the board to consider the applicant. So it really is based on if the board does not want to approve the bylaws as recommended, then you could look at the applicant.
Why wouldn't they have made a recommendation to reduce from 15 to 10? If they want this.
Odd number.
Or
TAG
11.
Yeah, TAG really was looking at an odd number, and they were also looking at a smaller number.
But they've never had 15 people on.
And it's just their maximum. I guess I'm always wary of someone who's going to create a policy, or a group that's going to create a policy that is, instead of saying that they just don't want this person and that they're not really qualified, this is further complicated by the fact that they're recommending this person, so it doesn't. The other thing that kind of was concerning me about this is that they are also adding the representative interest groups. So they're saying we want more diversification, we want to represent more voices. We want fewer people. We don't want this qualified applicant that we actually do want. It did present a lot of sort of contradictory messages that are hard to interpret what they are actually going for. It's hard not to sort of interpret some sort of, I'm trying not to go to like some sort of underpin message, which doesn't seem to be there, but kind of looks like it's there.
I don't think it's there.
Okay.
I mean, I read through it quite a bit. I think they just, it was like Nicole said, the order that they considered the issues, I think.
So
I mean,
could we go back and consider 11 instead of?
I'd say make it for 11.
Nicole, is it possible for us to not approve either and ask them to come back to us with a recommendation about whether
Clarity.
they want a new member or whether they want to stay at 9?
Yes. Absolutely.
I just want to remind folks that TAG has been sucking fumes for quite a few of the years I've been on the Transit Advisory Board, and they're just getting some energy right now. So let's not squash the enthusiasm that we're witnessing in that group either, because we've seen it's struggling a bit over the last 5 years, 4.5 years that I've been watching.
Heidi,
It
what
sounds
do
like
you,
with a new applicant, they are getting some new energy, which is good. I don't really see it as squashing them just to ask them to provide clarity. It's confusing what they're asking. I don't quite understand what they want.
It's a question on terms. So there's a 2-year term. Is it possible that someone is coming to the end of their 2-year term and we are looking at that person coming in to replace that person?
We will have some terms ending at the end of the year.
Okay, so it's usually January appoint and then December ending. Okay.
Are there term limits on tag?
Yeah.
there are,
I think it's 2 years.
and they can
Initially,
repeat 3
but-
times.
Is it 3 times?
Yeah.
Yeah, but experts.
Getting some clarification? They just
Just
get that.
so you know, Heather, both John and Vivian were on tag before they joined us here as when we expanded the board. Coached, yeah.
So actually, that seems like a good way to do it. I love it when there's committees, volunteer involvement, and then you move those people into leadership. That's kind of ideal. That happens.
But I think since they went through all this, they're at a really fine detail level with their recommendations. I think it would behoove us to approve the recommendations and let them figure out what to do about it.
How they implement these contradictory requests.
You can say that confidently because I have no idea who the new person is.
I'm fine with that proposal also, Vivian.
I guess I would argue that we should change the number to 11 and appoint the member that they wanted to appoint. I don't know, the 9 seems like an artificial number, you're right, they made a lot of really granular changes that look fine, it's just. I feel like if they had done it in the other order, they very likely would have ended up with the number 11, but they had just gone through the process. And sometimes being agile means let's make both of these recommendations work. I guess I would say their recommendations with the limit of 11 would make both recommendations function.
And I'll just be clear, for me, I feel like, one way or the other, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. At least if we can at least go back to them and just express the confusion that this created so that they have a sense of how to work with us a little bit better and make it clear what they're asking for. And even if we just do that, I'm fine with it, but.
I'll be at the next tag meeting, so I can convey our confusion. Yeah, it's something I'm always eloquent at.
I agree with Greg's proposal to make it 11 just because of the number of representative interests that are included in the bylaws.
Me too.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the bylaw recommendations with the one modification of moving the maximum number to 11 and approving the bylaw recommendations with that one change.
I'll second.
Any more discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. And then recommendation for TAG to appoint a new member, which we've also discussed pretty extensively. So I think I would entertain a motion to approve that since our previous motion basically took that into consideration.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation from TAG to appoint their new member.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
I just wanted the record, Laurel Geyer, keep her name in it, yeah. So that's the new tag member. Congratulations, Laurel Geyer.
Thanks, Greg. All right, Miranda, are you the one that's going to talk about the reserve fund policy?
Yes, so we wanted to keep this discussion point on the board packet throughout the year. This is a pretty packed meeting, so I'm just going to go over briefly that at our February meeting, we began talking about reserve policy, what that may look like in 2026 if the board has recommendations for change. So this memo that is included is just to summarize the discussion that the board had back in February, provide a current status of the policy and the policy guidelines and where our reserve accounts are at. And then just reiterate that this is an invitation to the board to provide feedback on our current reserve policy. You can bring comments back to the board in June, or you can email me directly and I will incorporate it into a summary of potential changes for discussion. I want to continue having this conversation throughout the year. And just provide the opportunity for the board to make a determination as to whether they would like to change the policy for 2026. So yeah.
Thanks, Miranda. It might be helpful if you develop some specific recommendations about policy changes as you see fit, as we have more of those discussions.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay.
Hey, John, can
yeah.
I am really sorry to do this, but before we move into the reports, I have a couple of questions on the consent agenda and I hadn't pulled out my notes. I think they're very, very, very fast. Would you entertain some thoughts? Just on the minutes, it still says that Kate Dean was in attendance in February, and is pretty sure she wasn't. My last name has 2 L's in it. And once you make that correction, you'll never have to do it again. I promise. It's that complicated thing. So those are just my 2 comments on the meeting minutes. And on the resolution, I think unless there's some reason, it's dated 2015 and I think it should be 2025. So I just wanted to.
Yes.
So just before we.
It should be 2025.
So I apologize, I hadn't pulled out my notes quickly enough by the time we went through that. But if you would entertain those thoughts before to.
They're all Scrivener's errors, really, right?
Yes, it should be quick and easy to fix. I just needed to voice them.
Yep. Heather, thank you for reading those carefully enough to notice those issues. Nicole, do we need a motion to make those changes, or is that something you guys can just do?
We need a separate motion because we already approved the consent agenda.
Yeah, it feels like do we need another motion to?
We should do another motion approving the changes stated.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can make a motion to correct the February meeting minutes, to remove Kate Dean and to correct Commissioner Dudley Nolet's last name, and to revise resolution 25-10 with the correct date to 2025.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nicole, we didn't need a motion to reopen the consent agenda, right? That was appropriate the way that we did that, you think?
Yes, and
Okay.
also Kelly is signaling yes as well.
All right.
Real excellent.
Good. So it's 3:17, we're at reports. And I guess I would ask that since those reports are all available in the packet, that any of the managers that want to highlight anything in the report, let's do that. But in the sake of kind of keeping us on time, maybe we could keep it to just a few comments. And it looks like iPhone, which I think is probably Rick, maybe has a question.
Yeah, I have a question real fast when it comes back to the reserve discussion. We really need to keep an eye on this expansion of the electric buses. I know I bring it up all the time, but with the deficits the state's carrying, with the lack of the federal mandates for green energy, we need to keep an eye on if this is the direction we still want to go into. You guys on the board, on this board, you make all these concessions and stuff, but they last for as long as an election cycle. Some of the stuff you guys propose, you know, you're not going to have to carry on with whatever you mandate. The people here in this room are the ones who got to deal with it. So my suggestion would be to keep that in mind.
Thanks for those comments, Rick.
And I would like to know, You know, where does the administration, what do they, how do they see this? You know, how does Nicole and everybody else, what is their thoughts? So I don't think we've ever asked what their thoughts are.
I think we just asked for them to bring some comments to the next meeting, right? Some
Yeah, that was going to be my
proposal.
suggestion too. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, thanks.
So moving on to reports, I will say to the board that I did provide an update in March. I'm getting my months all confused. Update in March regarding some of the budget conversations happening at the state level. And the updates that I'm getting are fast and furious and ever changing. And I've not provided a follow-up because it has been difficult to keep track of what is now the most current version. But as we know, the budgets are being discussed in finer detail, and there is a cutoff time, which the legislature may or may not make, we'll see. But another update will be coming. I just didn't want to leave the board hanging, but I really didn't want to provide updates every few days about what's happening at that level. So another update will be coming from me when I have a good update. As far as my report, the other thing that I would like to mention is that we have been talking a lot about the Haynes Place Park and Ride redesign, and we did put out an RFQ in March, and that RFQ closed. We did have 3 respondents as of late Friday. So staff will be working on evaluating those responses. But Haynes Place is something we've been talking about for what seems like a very long time. So I did want to let the board know that we are making some progress on that project. But other than that, the rest of my report, if you have questions, I'm happy to take questions, but otherwise I can pass it along.
I am very happy to report that we are so close to being full staff on drivers. I could hardly contain myself.
Hey.
We have a class that graduated. They finished their training and they're actually doing transit operator work. And we have 2 more people starting Monday. And we have 1 retiring and 2 basically leaving. So we've already filled those. It will work out perfectly. So I'm so excited because this is a perfect time where we are so happy with left turn, right turn, and trying to get more service on the road and do it as quickly as possible. And it is frustrating because there is a process to go through and we want to do it right. But now that we have the manpower, we're super excited.
Women
power.
Expect a one midday
September. So September pick. We have aligned with Kitsap Fast Ferries schedule with our driver's pick. There's a lot of layers to why we were able to meet up with the summer schedules doing on Saturdays. So we're only by a week off. That means a longer driver pick, but the September pick, we're hoping to do the midday Brennan, the changing of the shuttle and the number 4, which is a heavy lift, but we're for it.
Exciting.
I'd like to prioritize number 1.
Yes, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
And the Kingston Express, we are adding
yes, the late.
We are adding a 3rd run on the Kingston Express starting March 5th.
May 5th.
May 5th. What January? It's May 5th. That's exciting. You're gonna start to hear from us. We're doing a press release. We'll see if it gets published. But we'll also be doing some social media ads and reaching out to city and county partners to help spread the word. So help us spread the word.
Somebody tell Kate Dean to share it. It's kind of her baby, so knowing that there's 3 now.
Yeah. Exciting. It's just growing around.
The hardest things for me to explain and coming in and taking her seat is that I don't really use social media. And everybody's like, oh, shoot. Like, I'll have to find other ways to engage.
We have to call Kate. So did you know?
Did you? That's right.
Yeah.
That I can do.
All right, anything else in the reports that any of the managers want to bring up?
On the mobility side, it's not as exciting as Amy's, but it was still great. We collaborated with Dash and Usawa to deliver a vendor training session for the farmers market vendors. And the idea is to make it inclusive and accessible and barrier-free for the public. So it's really training the vendors on how they can make their booths more accessible. We went to the Port Townsend Public Open House for the comprehensive planning, and that was a good event. And we also did our 3rd year with Salish Coast, the elementary school, for the literacy night. That's one of my favorites.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, if no other.
I know you were gonna look at me.
I looked at Des, only because.
No, I'll get them.
Well, no, I
I'll do
want
quick ones.
the Barker Creek. You can. Barker Creek.
Well, Barker
You have
Creek.
photos. Photos of.
It looks fantastic.
Actually, there's actually more on it now than the last report. It actually looks like a building now. Well, starting to, because they've got a lot of the foam insulation enclosed, so it actually looks like it's enclosed. So they are moving along, the progressing. And then also the yard electrification project. Next step will be Matthews Electric will be on site come Monday to start cutting concrete and excavating for the inductive charging. So we're gonna have a lot of activity on that one end of the yard. But those are gonna be clipping right along. And one that Nicole wanted me to throw in here also, we are looking into the solar powered stoplights to go out in some of our areas that are darker. And we're gonna, try to get that pilot program up and going. A couple companies I'm looking at right now. I haven't been able to get together with Nicole to have a good meeting on the pros and cons of these 2 companies, but I'm leaning more towards one just because of the design of their lights and the way they light up on the outside to alert the driver, and plus a good floodlight down to the passenger. And then identifying where they would go. Can't put them in too many shaded areas or they won't work so well. So
Bus stops, I don't know.
they are a lighted transit pole and they're solar. And so when they're at those stops, a rider can push the light and it lights up their area, but it also puts an alert light out on the pole.
Oh, that's
So especially on some of these roads that are very dark and the buses are going 50 miles an hour. They have other headlights oncoming, so a little flashlight doesn't always light up very well.
That's great.
Kelly, do you have anything quick you want to add?
Yeah.
Don't read the whole report.
So, now that I'm the new marketing outreach manager, I've created a marketing plan for 2025, and we plan to continue to promote Zero Fare. We're going to improve engagement, improve strategy for print and digital ads. We're going to work on enhanced event booths and handouts and signage when we're at events, and then increase engagement in the J-Talk area. And we just recently added an ADA widget to our website, and it has this scanning feature where every week it scans our entire website and all the pages, and it tells me if there's any issues. So I'm learning how to use it, and then I will work through all of those issues. So we'll be fully ADA compliant, which we are pretty much there. We're in the high percentage rate, so there's just little tiny things to work through. But just that's a quick update for now.
Great tool. Tom Tiersch would be so happy.
On the second page of my report, I just kind of show
Good
the
engagement.
social media following and our QR code scans. We have dynamic codes so we can track how many scans we have, which is kind of exciting. And then I've been tracking Rider Alert subscribers. This is information I give to TAG, and so I just think it's kind of cool to see. So I might expand on this throughout the months and show different demographics for social media and stuff like that. So anything you guys want to see, just let me know. That's all.
Great stuff.
Thanks, Kelly.
I think you should put Kate Dean on there so that we can analyze how effective her social media.
Just the watermark.
All right, I'm going to move on to public comment. Does any member of the public wish to give public comment? If you're online, raise your hand. If you're on the phone, press *9 and *6 to unmute.
There's one person online, but they are not raising their hand.
I'm just gonna say I'm not a member of the public, but I wasn't here for most of the meeting because I had overlapping meetings today. And I, in reading the packet before the meeting, was excited by a couple of things. One of them was the increased ridership year over year on the Kingston Express. That's just stunning. I mean, maybe you guys already talked about ridership earlier in the meeting, but that is just a great success with that route. And I remember when we started the route, we were all a little like, how's it gonna go? And look at us now. So it's really a success, and appreciate all the work we did to get that one going for folks. I know it makes getting across the Sound feasible for a lot of people. And the other thing I would just say is I saw the report about the electric buses coming. I think it's exciting. Everyone knows I'm a supporter of electric buses, and we've kind of, our train is on that track so far. And I just think it's exciting that we're making these big steps forward in 2025 with that project. So thank you for the work on that as well. And that comment was in honor of Kate.
All right, any other comments before we adjourn? All right, I adjourn this meeting of the Jefferson Transit Authority Board at 3:31 p.m.
Perfect
Thanks,
time.
everyone.
Yeah.
A minute late, darn it.
Okay.
Great, John.
Actually, impressive.
Right.